Okay, Chapter 4's lecture is on the Middle East and North Africa. The North Africa and the Middle East are located in a very, very difficult part of the world, and it is a realm that is covered with deserts, mountains, plateaus, and believe it or not, is highly urbanized. It's an environmentally diverse region. It's an area where plate tectonics is very active. That is, the different plates are combining and hitting one another, creating all kinds of violent activity, volcanoes, earthquakes, and such. This realm also has a significant amount of rivers that are very, very important to the lifeblood of the people that live there. Climate is very much affected by the fact that it's in and around the equator, and it's surrounded by bodies of water which moderate climate. However, there are a lot of areas that are very arid and dry, and therefore the soils are not very conducive for agriculture. Where there are mountains, you have orographic rainfall, which means the rain will fall on the eastern side, on the windward side of the mountains, and then as the air mass crosses over the top of the mountains, on the eastern side of those mountains, it's rather dry. As a result of climate change, it has affected this area quite a bit, and you'll notice the people that live in the Middle East and North Africa dress accordingly, and the low-lying areas are most affected. As you can tell on this map, the landforms, the areas in green, are the lowland areas near the coastline. That's where most people live. And that's around the rivers. Also, you'll notice more likelihood of flooding capacity, but that's also the best land for agriculture. As you can tell by this map of physical environments, you can see the different tectonic plates and where they meet in this area, creating a lot of instability, a lot of earthquakes. You can see this especially true in Turkey, Iran, Yemen, and Morocco. Obviously, a big problem in this area is amount of fresh water. The Nile, Tigris, and Euphrates rivers are very important. Occasionally, you'll find an oasis out in the desert where the water table rises to the top and allows the ground to be fertile enough for agriculture. One of the things that they're doing in this part of the world is taking salt out of it, called desalination, and that's been very, very important in order to provide fresh water. As you well know, the resources in this area, they have a lot of oil and natural gas. Over 60% of the world's reserves of oil exist here, as well as 40% of natural gas. It's an increasing demand and very, very important to this region. Obviously, petroleum serves a variety of uses. It's obviously very important in the internal combustion engine. One of the cartels that controls the buying and selling of oil is called OPEC. And during the oil crisis, the 1980s, they were controlling the world oil prices. Unfortunately, with the glut in the oil market, because of newly discovered oil in the United States, there is a reduction of sales of oil, and so therefore the Middle East is now running into economic problems because they're not selling as much oil to the West as they used to. Another problem in this area is environmental concerns with deforestation. There are a number of animal species that are nearly extinct, the cheetah, the crocodiles, lions, and so that's a very, very big problem area for the environment. Historical landscapes, obviously, this is the cradle of civilization, the Fertile Crescent, supposedly for people of religion in Judaism and Islam and Christian. This is the foundation to a population of humankind. This is also the area where plant and animals were domesticated. The three great monotheistic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all reside in this area. This is also the area of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire was a Muslim area, and it controlled a lot of this part of the world over time, as you can tell by the different maps, the Byzantine Empire. And by the way, the word Middle East is a direct result of this area being middle to Europeans. The first geographers came from Europe, and so this was middle to Europe. The Far East would have been China. The Near East would have been Turkey. Obviously, the economy is very much involving with the export of oil, and so if the oil prices drop, the economies in this part of the world struggle. They are a rural to urban migration with a lot of subsistence farming going on. And you can find in different parts of this world, the Eastern Mediterranean crescent in Europe, Lebanon, Israel, and Turkey, you have a lot of economies that are very rural and farming oriented. The same thing for Northern Africa. And there's a lot of social inequalities. A large group of people that are wealthy because of oil and petroleum, and a large group of people that are poor. A lot of political unrest in this part of the world, especially in Iran. And of course, the Arab Spring was when the masses of people in Syria and Libya and Egypt began to rebel against the autocracy and the dictatorships, wanting more democracy and economic reform, and that caused all kinds of fighting, which we are very much involved with now in Syria. You'll find a lot of the people that live in this area do not get along. A lot of ethnic conflict between the Iranians, which are Persians, and then the Iraqis, which are Arab. Then there's a group of people that exist in both Iran and Iraq called Kurd, or it used to be called Kurdistan, and they're another culture, and they are not liked by either the Iranians or the Iraqis. And then you have the Sudan area in northern Africa, where you have a lot of revolution and fighting going on. Obviously, the big issue is you have the nation of Israel surrounded by Arabs and Muslims. And so you will read in this chapter about the Israeli conflicts, about the decision to create the State of Israel by the United Nations in 1948-49, the resulting Arab-Israeli wars, the rise of the Palestinian movement, Hamas, Hezbollah. It's been a very dangerous part of the world for the Jews of Israel, and they are still trying to negotiate peace. Obviously, the United States has been actively involved in this area when we were involved in the war in Iraq, trying to get rid of a dictator, Saddam Hussein, which was practicing genocide not only in his people, but killing the Iranians and the Jews. And also the weapons of mass destruction, which at one time was thought to exist in Iraq and then turned out not to be so. So there are a lot of tensions between Iraq and Iran. The Iranians are wanting nuclear weapons, and of course the West opposing that. Religion and language are very important in this region. Obviously, you'll see the influence of the Islamic religion. You have the radical Islamic situation going on in this part of the world, which is creating a problem. Christianity is trying to stay in the area, but it's being threatened by the radical Muslims. And then you have the Jews living in Israel trying to have the only democracy in the area and dealing with attacks from outside their country. Culture is very, very interesting, and as you read in this chapter, you'll learn about dance, music, film, and architecture, obviously the great churches, the mosques that exist in the area. Very family-oriented. There are gender stereotypes, which you'll read about. Women are not necessarily given equal rights, and that varies from culture to culture. You'll notice the movement toward urban areas, and you can see by the color coding of the map, people live near fresh water. They live where the land is well suited, the climate's good. Population is rather stable with over 500 million in the area. You have a pull factor. A lot of people move into this area to work, so immigration is a concern, and you have push factors, a lot of civil unrest, where people are wanting to leave this area because of lack of economic opportunity. Cities are growing. Housing is a problem. Obviously, the three future geography concerns are oil, water, and peace. And in many cases, all three of those areas are very, very important to the stability of the area. That is the end of Chapter 4.